From Acres USA, you are listening to the Acres USA podcast, a conversational podcast where we'll explore sustainable farming, regenerative practices, and the latest innovations in eco-agriculture with some of your favorite farmers and ranchers. I'm your host, Taylor Henry, the owner and CEO of Acres USA. Welcome to the Acres USA podcast. All right, we are joined with Hubert and Suzanne Carman, who are going to be speaking at our Acres USA conference this year. Hubert is an author of ours that wrote three different titles that we've published. And I think you guys actually met at the Acres conference, 10 years ago?
We did.
In Pittsburgh.
She was sitting in the front row in one of my talks, and I said, "You're here to learn." And, we've learned about each other a lot in the last 10 years.
We were married like 3 months later.
Yeah. 5 months.
So you're going to have your 10-year anniversary in a few months.
Right at the Acres meeting. Yep.
Well, 10 years of meeting. Yeah, it'll be 10 years at the meeting.
Huh. Yeah. That's very cool.
Yeah.
So Suzanne, I think probably a lot of people would know Hubert from his books, but you want to give a little bit of background, Suzanne, on how you wound up at an Acres conference 10 years ago, or what you were doing there?
Sure. I was milking about 15 cows at that time, which Hubert thought was a very funny number of cows to milk. And indeed it is, but we now have a more round number. We milk 60 cows. And I got into food for raising food for a lot of the reasons a lot of people are now. It was less common then, which is I was interested in eating quality food. And I really believed that if I was going to eat the way I wanted to eat, then I was going to have to partake in it. And so about 20 years ago, I got into agriculture because to get two things. I wanted eggs from chickens that ate an organic ration as well as bugs and had sunshine. And that was not available in North Carolina at that time. And I wanted to drink milk from a cow that ate grass, and I wanted to drink it raw. And neither of those things were available. They are now much more so readily. And had they been available then, I guarantee you I would not be in agriculture. It was sheerly like out of a desire to have those things. And so I learned to produce them myself. But in the process, agriculture really bit me. And I'll never forget my mom's terror when I took her to a local guy raising grass-fed beef. And I was talking to him, and he became a mentor of mine. And he looked over at my mom and he said, totally deadpan, he said, "Ma'am," he'd never met my mom. He said, "Ma'am, I'm afraid your daughter has it very bad and there's no cure." And my mom is like, my mom used to be an OR nurse, so she's thinking I have like some disease that I picked up from being on the farm. And she's like, "What is it?" And he goes, "Ma'am, your daughter has cow fever." And my mom was like, "Oh," and it's true. I mean, I think once you love a dairy cow, you just love a dairy cow.
Hey,
and it's one thing about you and I, we've never had to explain to each other is our devotion to cows. And I think in any other normal relationship, we'd have to be like, well, we have this little side project, but we both have the side project.
I got cow fever in 1984. When I first started milking cows in the Netherlands, I was instantly addicted in a good way. And still milking cows now, going through the whole thing, being a veterinarian and everything, but I'm back to milking cows.
Yeah, it's what led me to.
Yeah. It's nice when things like that happen, especially like we're both not farm kids. Both grew up in the suburbs you grew up in Chicago. I grew up outside of Philly. And so, it's really kind of interesting because I think a lot of people that get into however we want to call it, alternative, regenerative, organic, sustainable. I can't stand that word. I'm sorry. But, the kind of agriculture, especially livestock agriculture, are from non-farm backgrounds. And it's just kind of interesting because we have on our farm, with our 60 cows, we've had many interns come through, and not one has been from a background of a farm. We've had 2 employees that grew up on dairy farms, and they've been good. but they also come with their own kind of luggage, if you will. Things have got to be a certain way. And I understand that from being a vet among the dairy cows, in Lancaster, PA, and the Amish. It's a certain way. These two folks weren't Amish, but it's really kind of fun seeing people really enjoy agriculture because it's like new to them. It's a new way of life, and if you're in the alternative, sustainable, regenerative, organic realm, it's fun. You're not hurting the earth making the food. That's the greatest part.
I was in DC on 9/11, and I actually saw United States of America printed on the bombs as the F-15s were flying over the Capitol. Like, I worked on Capitol Hill, and that was just a very altering experience. And I've seen a lot of sausage be made before I was a pork farmer. Let's just put it that way. And I really left in this very Jeffersonian little d, little r Democratic Republic way. Like, I went to DC as an idealist, and I left while I could still be that, but I couldn't be that there. And so I noticed that people in DC, if you stayed more than a decade, you never left. And I was right on that. I was like coming up on it, and I was like, I got to get out of here. Um, or I'm never going to leave. And so I left really believing that if I was going to pursue, I went to DC as a mechaniac. I really believed if we could just get the money out of politics, like, it was all going to be okay. And interestingly enough, that ended up being my beat as my last beat as a reporter, as I covered money and politics for Roll Call newspaper, which was then owned by The Economist, and a very well respected newspaper. And my colleagues all went on to do big things. And then I went off to be a goat farmer. That's what they said. I never actually had goats. It was the only livestock I've never had, really, in numbers. But I left with the same idealism, but a different place to find it. Like, I once I was a political journalist, and I understood deeply congressional law. I mean, congressional how campaigns worked and how they're financed and all of it. I no longer believed that we could actually extract the money out without extracting our ability, like yours and mine or yours and mine, to freely associate. That it gets real razor's edge at some point. Like, money and speech are, it seems really simple from many thousands of miles away from Washington to legislate that. But actually, once I really deeply understood the constitutional law and the other parts, I was like, this is actually really complex, and I'm not sure that we can take the money out. Only way I believed we could live in a democratic republic is to live in small communities in an agrarian way. Like, I believe that our founders were agrarians for a reason. That wasn't an accident. And I deeply admired the Renaissance men that they were in many respects. And I wanted to emulate that in the countryside. Like, I believe that the countryside doesn't need to be populated by people who couldn't do anything else with their lives. Like, I really think that rural economies deserve our best and our brightest. And so I left with that really, like, as my motto. And I found it. We live in an amazing community of people who are very different than Hubert and I in a lot of respects. We're in I wouldn't say we're in the deep South, but we're in the South.
It's the
Like,
South.
we're in a very rural part of North Carolina, even though we're only 20 minutes from Chapel Hill.
I mean, we're Yankees through and through.
And yeah, I mean, we're straight up Northerners, and we've been welcomed by this community in large part because I believe of agriculture
And dairy especially.
and they saw that we were, like, legitimately dairy farming.
We're trying.
And I can't tell you how many times they've rallied for us and come and got our crops out of the field and taught us things and helped us with things and shared equipment, and we do things together and we show up for them. And to me, this is like the ideals that I went to Washington for, I actually found in agriculture. And so deeply resilient local economies and communities of people who are producers rather than consumers is like my life force. And I love it. And I really believe that we're walking in our design, our divine design, when we are producing things, when we're making things, when we're building things, we're growing things, we're articulating things with our hands. I believe that's our highest calling. And I think anything else in some ways, despite everything in convenience culture that has taught us that when we consume things that we are free because we don't have they have the ardors and the travails and the struggles of producing them. I think that's actually what makes us slaves. And I'm interested in being free. And so agriculture to me is really the foundation of that.
So I think what you guys are saying resonates a lot with me, because someone that came into cattle production with zero knowledge, and then I dove into the regenerative world, which then kind of pushes you to this spot of not treating animals. And a lot of people will say, like, well, if you rotationally graze or move your animals, you're not going to have these problems. And we really haven't. But like this year, we brought a herd in from South Dakota. We commingled the herd. I think maybe we were a little bit overstocked, so they might have been getting a little bit more higher protein type forage, and we ended up having like 4 limpers out of nowhere. Well, then I was like, well, what am I doing wrong? Like, you feel like a failure of some sort, because it was the first time we had a vet out in 3 or 4 years, and you do have this feeling of like not really treating them, or not wanting to treat them at all. And we're not certified organic or anything, but I do resonate with you guys with that. Where, like, give yourself grace a little bit. Like, things do happen. There probably was a management mistake that we made. We shouldn't have put them all together, probably. And then we were grazing maybe a little bit too short of forage. But yeah, I think, what would you describe, with people that are coming to you, what does that tool chest look like? What are some of the things that people should have? They have cattle on their farm, dairy operations. What are some of the no-brainers? Part of it for me was I found it hard to find that information, because, like Hugh, your book is so big. And so, like you said, it's an encyclopedia. Well, what do I pick out of there? I can't just ask the book a question. And if you Google things, like, you're going to get more of the conventional approach.
Absolutely.
So until I've started interacting, like Will Winters helped me out a lot this year, interacting with you guys, like, what are the things that we really should have on the farm for emergency type situations when that animal does get sick or something does happen?
Well, yeah, no, totally, I get it. And actually, in my barn guide, Taylor, the medicine cabinet is on a page, and that's pretty straightforward. That's not as deep as the encyclopedia.
Although we were
But
going to use that.
we were, but that's even too
It's
much.
it's it's a little outdated.
Well,
So we were going to use that for our own. So the question you're asking, Taylor, is one we got over and over and over again. And so
and
finally, everything we've done has been because people have asked us to do it
questions.
so many times that we got tired of answering the same question, and so we just did something. So the first thing I would say is that um, Hubert has 6 tinctures that are in a
Yeah.
formula in a like a set that we sell on our website, that are one for each organ system.
Right. So
And
we have like eat well, and actually all the names kind of the name says it all in a certain sense. I hate to be like cliche like that, but there's get well for, you know, infections. There's eat well for off feed. There's live well for the liver cleansing and metabolism. There's eye well. What else? There all the wells.
so
Udder
breathe,
well. You
so
know,
breathe
it's
well, get well, tummy
breathe well.
well.
Yeah.
Tummy well, so I'll just go through them like kind of from a practical point of view. So if I only had one, I would have get well. It's the foundation is garlic. There's other
Echinacea,
supporting herbs in it.
ryegrasses, berberines. Yeah.
So like you have a calf that's starting to show signs of pneumonia. We would use get well and breathe well together. And we would
Just
probably add
orally.
live well too, because it's a liver tonic, and a lot of, and this is understood well in the holistic community, but like a lot of issues with acute illness come from toxicity overload, or just sort of the body not being able to slough things off that need to go. And the liver is the organ that does that. So live well is supportive of that. And then
What are the other three?
eat well,
Right.
we would use, like, for
For
example,
like
a ketone.
colic or bloat or constipation without fever. And actually, there's some equine vets in Indiana that say that the eat well that has actually botanical nux vomica in it, which is a nerve stimulant. One vet said, "Boy, doc, this has really saved a lot of horses from going to surgery for colic." And I'm like, "Whoa, okay, that's real medicine," and it is real medicine from the old books. I mean, that's where I got my medicines. The formulas from is based on what veterinarians would have used in the old days, and so also through trial and error, I've come down to like basically a little half dozen things. And I remember my friend Jerry Bernetti saying, Hugh, you know, that's pretty smart just having a half dozen things instead of like 38 or 100 different things because it gets confusing to everybody. Plus, you know, the names that are easy like eat well, get well, tummy well, eye well, udder well, yeah, people can figure out what it's for. But, you know, it's through trial and error that we have like this basic half dozen of things. And then what else? We also have an emergency first aid kit for these people that have one cow to two dairy cows in north central
Or
Arkansas.
500 cows. You could still, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. But mainly it's for the small holder that might have a dozen cows or whatever and doesn't have access to a veterinarian. They're in like northern Maine, you know, eastern Arkansas, wherever you name it, where there's not a vet. And there's not many dairy vets left, actually. It's kind of sad. The dairy vets are all in the big dairy areas, either where the Amish are or in California and Idaho. And so basically, we have responded to what they need. Of course, you got to have stethoscope to listen to the lungs and the rumen. You're going to have a thermometer to take their temperature. I mean, that's two basic things. But we also put an IV line in with a couple bottles of CMPK for grass tetany or milk fever, a bottle of dextrose for ketosis, vitamin B, vitamin C, antioxidant, you know, appetite stimulant, aspirin, pink pills for you know, if they have grain overload, their two cows got it in the chicken feed, they can give them Magnalax, as well as they can get their own baking soda, you know, really practical things like
there's a
that. I
calf
mean,
tubing kit in
yeah,
there.
it's like, yeah, and calving chains, you know, and one person just wrote in saying they had like 100-pound calf coming out of Holstein, which is even big for when I was in full-time practice. They couldn't have done that without those chains. So that kit, like, just saved them a vet bill if they could even get a vet. That's the problem these days is getting a dairy vet where these
Or just
people
any
live. It's
vet.
like near impossible, or any vet. And so anyway, we're trying to help people like in real practical terms from my experience and my um, perspective on wanting to treat things naturally as much as we can. I can't write scripts over state lines for penicillin or Banamine, the two things that I would have on hand, or ampicillin. That's up to their local vet if they can get it. But with the Get Well, they can IV that actually. You know, so we try to be practical, we try to be simple, and people are very happy with this emergency kit. Even people that are getting like their first spring and heifer, that you know, they just feel like they can sleep better because they got something on hand. Now, there's a lot of people that have been having cattle like yourself, let's say, that haven't had a problem 3, 4 years, and they're like, I don't need a vet. And that can be true. But education can be very expensive, whether you're in school or not. And veterinary costs these days are, I want to say, astronomical compared to what I was charging in Lancaster. Maybe I shouldn't have been in Lancaster if I wanted to make more money. But, you know, like down here, I am floored by what we're charged by my vet, and I would think maybe we get a collegial break, but nope. You know, anyway, we try to put experience and practicality and simplicity all in one thing. So, what would you get? You know, these 6 bottles of tinctures. By the way, these tinctures are made by a guy who's got a PhD in experimental medicine. He's FDA inspected, GMP. I mean, it is top of the line. He only sells to MDs and me. I mean, these are potent tinctures, mainly resting on formulae from the old vet books. So we try to give a guy like you there something that has some punch, you know, if you need it.
Yeah, I mean that's what I would say is like if we were to outfit you, Taylor, and just say, okay, like we're gonna set you up so that you could deal with stuff that came up, we would give you the 6 tinctures,
And the
and then
emergency
the
kit
first aid kit,
and the
and
manual.
we'll get to that part in a second. But then, so like last night we had a case of hardware, and like this is something that could happen on your farm. It could happen on anyone's farm.
We
And
haven't had a case of hardware in 10 years. It's the second time I gave a magnet, which is in that kit. I gave IV Get Well and Feel Well, which they can have. The IV line and the needles are in that kit. What else did I give her? I think that was it.
we gave her a shot of Banamine, which
Later
is
on,
not
we
a,
gave her a shot of
but
Banamine,
like,
but that's okay for organic. But
but the
we
things that
got to
we
give her
used to
aspirin.
treat her were entirely in this first aid kit. So Hubert's a veterinarian.
And she's
We treated her with non-prescription things, and it worked. And she's better today, but she was doing really poorly.
she's grazing today.
And so I felt really good about when I thought about that case, and I thought about like your farm, Taylor, or somebody else's farm who we mentor or help. I'm like, you know what? They could have done this. Like in we have a manual, which we can talk about in a minute,
Oh,
but
we filmed it and
the
everything.
manual like shows you how to give an IV. So now you have the IV kit, you have the tinctures, you have a bolus gun, you have a magnet, and now you have the manual, which shows you like you go through the symptoms, you're looking and you're like, okay, this is probably hardware disease, and you have the stuff to treat
Well,
it
that's
because
like from the barn guide.
well,
Yeah.
because what we're finding is that people are telling us that their veterinarian can come like on Thursday and it's
Right.
Sunday.
Right.
And like their
It's
animal's
nuts.
not going to be alive on
No,
Thursday.
it's not going to be live tomorrow unless they do something.
And or they're like, or their animal can be hauled into the veterinarian, but some of these animals are going to die in transport if they're being hauled into a veterinarian. And or they have no vet at all. Or they have a vet and their vet's like, well, I'll come out, but it's going to be a minimum of $600 because I'm doing blood work.
We've heard
We've
that.
heard this over and over again. And like,
Yeah.
it should not cost you $600 to do a milk fever case.
Right.
Like she needs a bottle of CMPK
It's
and
like $10.
and like you just have to know how to do it.
Right.
And so what we're really trying to do is empower the most number of people we can in livestock so that not only can they take care of their own animals and their animals can live, because it's really discouraging when your animals are sick or dying. It's just discouraging. And but what I'm like most excited about is the people who have been working with us the longest are lights in their communities. So they go out like when they
They're
see
like paramedics.
when they hear of a neighbor or they hear of somebody on our forum. We have about 325 people on this private forum that people pay a monthly membership fee, and that gets access to Hugh and I.
Dr. Karreman
And it
answers,
also
yeah.
gets access to them to having other people who are kind of in this, and those folks go and show up for each other. And it's I'm like,
Northern Alabama. Who would ever thought there's dairy people there? But there's like 15, 20 people in the counties of northern Alabama next to Tennessee that
15 or 20 just in our program. I'm sure
right.
there's more.
And
But
and there's this one gal who will drive like an hour and help these people out of the kindness of her heart, and it's amazing. I mean, the homesteading world is a new world to me, that's for sure. I mean, you've been in it, for all this time, and now you're commercial dairy, and now I'm more involved with the homesteaders. But we're here to help people take care of their animals because we really believe in honestly being compassionate care for animals. That's what we're about. And so actually when I remember this one time, I don't know why I'm thinking about this right now. This one certified organic dairy farmer had a bloated cow. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I'm going to say it. And I I was in at the farm for a herd check, and he told me about this bloated cow that died that day. He didn't go out and treat it. He said, at least he won't bloat on me again. And I thought to myself, he was like happy about that. And I'm like, wait a second, dude. Like, what does the organic customer think that's paying buku bucks for your milk if you just let an animal go and bloat and die? It didn't like, I don't know. Still kind of rankles me to think about that. And yet there is a certain kind of or thought within the organic, regenerative, alternative world, whatever you want to call it, like, that's it's having a hard time lambing, like let it go. And it's like, whoa, man, that's not, I think, what the Lord God would want us to do with his creation. We're supposed to help others, and that includes our animals that are under our care. So we try to be a good I don't know, example or I don't know, source of information for people, to give practical information as much as we can.
my very favorite part of what we do is like, and when people write to me and tell me that they will screenshot their interactions with their neighbors or somebody in their community, and like they're now mentoring someone who's new, and the person is writing back to them like, oh my God, thank you so much. I'd be so lost. I like my cow was going to die, and you came and you gave her a bottle of calcium, and like And then the person who I've mentored is saying like, this is what it's all about. You're not in this alone. And like, and they showed up with their supplies. Like I could cry because like that, like if I left Washington for anything, it was for that. And just today, someone wrote to me and said that she bought our first aid kit because her neighbor's calf is struggling. And she said, I feel so badly that I have nothing to offer. And so she bought our first aid kit and it's not cheap. I mean, it's like several $100s. And like she bought it. And because she in her heart couldn't live with herself and be a neighbor and like watch her neighbor like not have anything for this animal. And I don't know if she's going to be able to save the calf or not. Like one of the things that we talk about all the time is like, if you're going to make an impact on your animals, the stuff has to be in your cabinet before you need it.
Yeah, early.
And so I don't know, but just the heart space of like wanting that to be that neighbor, like we show up for those people so that they can show up for their neighbors. And like, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
I think the community surrounding agriculture is definitely the most enlightening thing. It makes you realize that people are actually really good, and everything you see on the news isn't necessarily that true. So your guys' talk, I love the vet stuff. I think everyone should go check out. Is it the referencefarms.com is where they can find all these things? You guys are going to be talking about building pasture from the ground up. So I'm assuming you're going to be using your own farm as kind of a case study, but your description is the practical steps to build productive pasture-based livestock systems, including how you boosted soil organic matter from 0.5% to 5% on 200 acres and converted forest land, hayland into productive pasture and silvopasture. So why don't we get into that area, maybe a little bit of background of what type of farm you guys are on, what you inherited with when you bought that farm, and then where you guys are now with it.
Why don't you start and talk about your shock?
Oh, yeah. All right. So like I said, and people know, like I was in Lancaster County for 20 years, and that soil in Lancaster County is just like, primo, just from hundreds of years of fertility, added fertility by the animals and livestock, as well as just really good soil. I think it's the only soil in the United States that's like class 1 prime farmland that does not need irrigation. I could be wrong, but I think I've heard that. It's a special area there right in southeastern PA. And so when I came down here, when we started getting to know each other and all, and I started visiting, and I decided to come here and be here. I was walking around on the farm, and I was looking at some of the land, and I was just shocked. It looked like a lunar landscape. I mean, it was horrible. And what I found out is I was looking at the B horizon, the subsoil, because it part of the farm had been logged like I don't know 2-3 years before, and all the subsoil, all the topsoil, and in the south it's very thin, and that's very well known just in regular soil science, which actually was my major in college. But it was shoved off to the side. All the tree stumps were off to the side, and we tried growing anything. I mean, we added like fish emulsion with the spray, and we got all the organic stuff to, spray on this like Martian landscape. And it was peach orange colored gravel clay. And it was horrible. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what am I doing here? And
Yeah, I really thought when he looked at the soil, I thought he was going to like reject our relationship. And he looked like, I don't know how we can farm here. And I was like, it's going to work out.
well,
I said, this is actually really nice soil, and
well, actually, it's really interesting because okay, so
for around here.
we tried. It is. It's the Orange Piedmont. It's the Georgeville series. It is actually prime farmland for around here. But we were still looking at the subsoil. And so we tried to grow sorghum Sudan grass because it's nice and warm and humid down here. And we got these plants were about this high, and you could see down each crop with all the soil, and it
Like
sucked.
6 inches at maturity.
Yeah,
Like they were heading out.
It was pathetic because there's no topsoil. And what I realized, this was really interesting because I'd been in the certified organic world since 1988. It's now, what was it, like 2016, 2017? A long time I've been in it. And it was only after we started adding organic matter by various means that soil, that orange, barren, lunar landscape started really producing. And it's highly mineralized. It's, you know, got the clays in there, so it's got the minerals, and now it's nice. But what it told me is that biology is so much more important to the land than certified organicness. And you know, you can have great certified organic land, no doubt, if you have the right biology. And that's where like folks like Arden Anderson really talk about things. And I totally agree. John Kempf, you know, everybody talking about the biology of the soil, getting nutrient dense food, you know. And when you see pictures, and we'll have them in our talk, of how it was now about 8 years ago to what it is now, it's night and day. And it's all because of organic matter, how we fed the cows, what we brought in for free, mostly for free, some not. But yeah, it's all in the biology, and that's the story of the farm, is biology, not organicness.
Although we did it organically,
Well,
although
as
I'd
much as
have
we
to say,
could.
if I was to advise 10 year ago me, I would have said, just go ahead and fertilize for the first year, get massive amounts of growth, and put that all back in the earth. Because doing it organically from scratch was enormously expensive, not because of the organic inputs, but because the amount of carbon we had to haul in. And much of it we did get for free, but there's still the hauling and the spreading and the
Yeah,
working the soil and all of that. And livestock are amazing, organic principles are amazing, biology is amazing, but you have to start with something. And we started with nothing. There
Zippo,
was just
man.
nothing there. I mean, there was no there. It was like 0.4% organic matter.
There's also zero in some
So you're
places.
saying you wish you would have grown annuals with the help of fertilizer to put a lot
Yeah,
more
I mean,
stuff
if
in the
if
soil.
I didn't want to go broke, yes.
Well, and
Yeah.
also, I mean, we're still not growing perennials. We're just starting to, and that's where I think in regenerative everything is, you know, uh, perennial based, and we'd like to get there, but you know, we got dairy cows to feed. They take volume. I mean, so do beef cattle. Don't get me wrong, but like dairy cows, you're draining them every day. We drain them mechanically once a day by machine milking, but the calves, we raise calves on the cows too, so we're kind of odd that way. So they're getting drained out 8 times a day. And like if you don't want skinny skeletons, you gotta give them some kind of volume.
And quality
And
volume.
perennial pastures, just they do that maybe in the spring for a few months, but not like summer annuals do. And then what we find also is like crabgrass. That's an annual. They love that, and that helps too. But so you know, we'd be looked at askance by a lot of regenerative folks, and I know we are. We both know it, and it's okay because we live in reality. We want to help our animals the best as we can, and so we yep, we use a disc, and we need a good seed bed because we don't use chemicals to, you know, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, none of that. So we have to use a disc at least at this point, but we've been adding organic matter, and so I think we get some points that way from the regenerative world. But
I've sort of given up what I like following anyone's rules because I drank all the organic teas. I say very proudly, you know, I've been to all the conferences, I got the hats, and I've done all the things. But in the South, especially on Kentucky 31 fescue, especially with dairy cows, like there's just not enough go in those forages without amending the soil, working the amendments in, and growing an annual. And I know there are people who say you can perennial dairy. I'm sure you can, and
up in Minnesota,
I'm sure also you can't in a non-seasonal dairy in North Carolina where the soil is always oxidizing, it's always giving up organic matter. Like we're always in a battle and we're gaining ground, but I'm very aware that our soils are not under snow cover in the winter, which means they're always oxidizing, they're always releasing carbon, and so we always are putting it back in. And
and we have parasites too. That whole problem. But anyway, that's different. Go ahead.
what parasites?
Well, internal parasites that don't die over the winter time.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
oh,
don't freeze out.
that.
So what is the annual mixes and how are you feeding it?
So this is my sort of area. Uh, we fed it for years with imported free carbon. Um, a lot of people are big Joel Salatin adherents, and I am one of them. And one of the things that Joel says that people sort of miss is that in the beginning of his farm, he went and hand shoveled corn cobs in order to import organic matter. Like again, the organic matter has to come from somewhere. So for us, everyone wants to talk about the regenerative grazing part because that part's sexy. Like, oh my gosh, you can make like something out of nothing. All you need are some cow hooves. Well,
Mm.
to a point, like,
And especially with dairy, again, we're draining them out. You got to remember that.
yeah, like it doesn't work with 10 dairy cows, right? What you can do with 1,000 beef cows, you cannot do with 10 dairy cows. So we got the carbon elsewhere. We got it from a local municipality has a contract with a private company, and they sometimes have more trees than they know what to do with. So we became a dump site for them. We would pay the hauling.
Yeah, it's
Um,
kind of like a partially finished mulch. It's not compost, but it's like one step before compost. So we're happy with it.
and like I've just been like kind of a carbon cookie monster for a long time. Like I will literally chase down tree trucks on the road
Yeah.
when I now have a 17-year-old daughter, but when she was younger, like with a baby on my hip, throw my F-250 into park, running down the road with a baby on my side, being like, "Hey," and he's like, "No habla inglés," and I'm like, "It's okay, leche," and then like, can I have that? And I'd point to what he had, and I'd be like convincing them to come to our farm, and so
Now we get a
we have a
lot of
lot of wood
tree
chips that
shipping.
come in.
Oh my
But it
gosh.
took many, many years of developing those relationships. I was very discouraged at first because everyone's like, "Oh, you just get wood chips." And this is like way before chip drop. I've never been successful with chip drop. I hope other people are. But like this was just working one relationship at a time. Like I've called so many saw mills and just anybody who I could get carbon from. And if 200 acres is a lot of land to spread carbon on. Like it's acquiring carbon is like a job of mine.
Yeah.
Um,
So what are you
and
doing with it?
so
You're putting the wood chips inside of your infrastructure and then spreading it after.
no, we a lot depends, but we spread a lot of it just straight up. Now, when we
Just
get
straight
wood,
wood chips on fields.
well, let me nuance that a little bit. So
Yeah.
No, it's bedded pack.
when we get wood chips from from the tree companies, those come and we will use those in like on the lane, in laneways, places that are going to have a lot of high impact and are going to have manure and urine so that it's not just straight carbon, right? We're going to use those as a sponge and we're going to get urine and manure in them. And then we will probably partially compost those. We're not perfect composters. Like we do so many things that people who really know what they're doing would be like, that's
We're
not
like a
good.
jack of all trades, but we get the job done.
Hey, eco farmers. This is Taylor Henry with Acres U.S.A. I hope you enjoy this podcast as much as I enjoy interviewing these folks. If you're serious about regenerative agriculture, I've got an incredible resource you need to check out, the Acres U.S.A. membership. You farm in the physical world, and you deserve a physical printed magazine to match. Since 1971, Acres U.S.A. magazine has been the leading voice in ecological agriculture, delivering the best insights from regenerative farmers, agronomists, and researchers to help you farm profitably without toxic chemicals. Our membership included physical and digital copies of the magazine each month of the year, which has always been a standard for Acres USA, but we wanted to over-deliver on content. When I acquired this business, I was happy to find that we had years of audio files from presentations at our annual EcoAg conference. And guess what? They were hiding. Well, not anymore. We developed this membership portal that gives you access to the recordings from farmers like Gabe Brown, Gary Zimmer, Joel Salatin, and Mark Shepard. We also include recordings of private events. Finally, if you are like me and you like listening to content, we are now producing a membership-only podcast of each issue of the magazine, so you can consume each article while you're out in the field. To make things even sweeter, you'll get discounts on books, workshops, and events to keep expanding your knowledge. So are you ready to take your farming to the next level? Join today for a ridiculously low price at eco-farming.com or see details in the notes. Okay, so I do that too. I bring in wood chips and I use it in all of our lanes. But then are you saying that you scrape the top layer off?
Well, no. One thing we do.
Because we're a dairy, we have concrete lanes, right? So we scrape our all
daily, where the head gates are, where they eat, we put chips down all the time. No one does that. So
Yeah.
that gets
Oh, that's
scraped
smart.
off there. And also underneath the bedded pack, we got a straw bedded pack we add to every day. And so everything goes into the compost pile that's at some stage of aging.
Yeah, and like we don't have
Yeah.
enough space really near the barn to compost things to a point that would be
It's not.
finished. We would actually have to haul it to another part on the farm to
But I mean,
finish the compost.
it
So
steams great. I
we
mean,
end up spreading partially composted stuff a lot.
yeah.
And we just use that as a soil amendment. Do we lose some nitrogen in the early part of any growing season because of the amount of carbon that was going out there? Yes, I'm sure we do.
But we
But
get organic matter, and that is what counts on
so,
these soils.
right, that's what we've been really after. So that's like one part of the carbon program. The other part of the carbon program is, like Hugh said, is getting large numbers of, I mean, I'm talking like
18-wheelers.
50 tractor trailer loads at a time of partially composted wood mulch that has trash in it. I mean, it
Yeah.
straight up has trash in it. So like
From the city of
I'm
Durham.
obsessed with picking up trash because there's trash in our compost, and so we get trash all the time. I like to tell people that instead of a diamond ring, Hubert bought me a different kind of carbon, because instead of a diamond ring, I think he got me like 25 tractor trailer loads of
Yeah.
wood chips. And so that's been a really big part of the fertility program. Then growing cover crops, like deliberately growing. You were asking what was in the mixes,
Yeah,
the seed
yeah,
mixes.
tell 'em.
So for years, we were not growing for production of the land in terms of like the maximizing the amount of dry matter we could get off the land. We do more now. Like this year, we have half of the farm in ryegrass for the winter. So hopefully, if it rains, we will have a lot of tonnage that comes off of that. But for many, many years, we only pretty much planted small grain mixes with brassicas, clovers, and chicory, and anything else in there. Like, so it's always a heavy amount of forbs.
It's usually about 7 or 8 intentional
Yeah, and so like
different.
we're growing daikon radishes, and those are a little bit misnamed as tillage radishes. They don't till anything, and they do not go below the hard pan. Like when you have a daikon
They'll grow
radish,
up.
they're going to grow above, and you hit the hard pan, they grow above the soil. But it's still, they're leaving behind a massive amount of like fiber and sugars and proteins that are highly assimilable by the soil critters. So oftentimes when you pull those radishes out, you'll notice a bunch of saprocytic fungi,
Right on the soil.
like right in the
wall.
soil, like
Yeah.
in the bulb where it
All those
was.
tiny white hairs, you know.
And of course, if you can't see mycorrhizal fungi, but they're in there. If you see saprocytic fungi, you're going to have the mycorrhizae or around. You just can't see them.
But it's amazing though that single little mustard seed or daikon radish seed or turnip seed. We got a lot of turnips. The amazing amount of organic matter that it produces, and then it rots into the soil, and all the better.
So we never exceed about 2 pounds, or I like to even leave it as 1.5 pounds of brassicas per acre, because they will shade out everything else. Um, so our general seed mix is like small grains, like 110 to 120 pounds per acre of a small grain, couple pounds of different kinds of brassicas. So it would be like,
Chicory.
that's not really technically a
Oh,
brassica,
that's not a brassica.
but like kale, rape, collards, turnips, radishes. This year we're going to be more intentional about growing sugar beets, and
Non-GMO.
thank you, Dr. Karreman. And so that would be a winter mix. And so we've grown, and the small grains would either be like a mix of oats, triticale, wheat, cereal rye. We tend to buy whatever we can get locally and cheap for, our friends grow it and then they share the seed with us.
It's adapted to the area. It grows
And
great.
so we graze that stuff into probably May. And then in the summers, we're planting sorghum Sudan and millet, and we actually plant a lot of flowers in our sorghum Sudan and millet. We plant a couple hundred, about 50 pounds to 100 pounds of zinnias a year, because they attract so many wildlife and butterflies and birds, and that makes them so beautiful. And they actually compete really well with the sorghum Sudan and the millet. In fact, we were really enjoying those flowers for 3 years until the cows started eating them. And now we hardly see any flowers because the cows now enjoy the zinnias too.
We also add in sun hemp.
Oh, yeah.
That's a legume. It's not a hemp. I think everyone knows that. And also cow peas. And the cow peas will run up the sorghum Sudan grass and add the legumes.
The cowpeas definitely do not like compaction, so we've had to like the tilth of the soil has really helped the cowpeas come along. They were sort of the first few years we planted a lot of these mixes, it was really sad. Like you spend all this money on seed and you're just not getting
It
anywhere.
sucked.
Um,
We fed a lot of feed coming out of Pennsylvania that was transition baleage during that time.
yeah.
Now we feed baleage that we grow locally next door and other farms from other dairy farmers that are no longer in it. And that's our main feed instead of importing from Maryland and Pennsylvania. But
Definitely broke a lot of rules about stocking rates because the soil fertility was so poor and there's sort of a minimum viable concept that you need with dairy. You have to pay the light bill and your milking team and
yeah,
and like the chemical bill and whatever
yeah.
else, kind of regardless of how many, if you're milking 12 cows or 50, and we didn't have enough milk if we're milking 20 cows, which is probably what the land could have supported.
Right.
We didn't have enough milk to get picked up. So we had to milk more cows and the land needed more fertility. So we just bought a lot of hay. And, but those cows and that hay have changed the land. And now the land is, I mean, you can stick your hand in our soil many times a year without a shovel.
And when you walk on it, like in the wintertime, even it's kind of bouncy and spongy. It's amazing. It's not like that lunar landscape that I first saw. It's just amazing. It's like a miracle.
It's fun to host like acres type folks. Remember Bill came? People who really know the soil. When they walk on our soil, they're like amazed,
yeah.
and they get down and they smell it, and they're just like,
Bill Wolf, yeah.
yeah, because they know what it took to get that, and it took a lot.
So you're grazing these mixes throughout the year.
Yeah, and matter of fact, one of my
And
goals coming down here, or one of my dreams coming down here, besides her, is was to be able to graze every month of the year, at least a little bit. And we've done it 1 or 2 years. Like in mid-December through early February is probably the worst time down here. But if it rains now, we got 100 acres of rye planted. They will be grazing at least some green vitality coming into their system every day, or at least a bunch of days in each month. And
Yeah.
if we can do it in late December and through January, we're doing pretty good, because real grazing here in this area starts in like third week of February. We're really on it. Like crimson clover is coming on, and all the other things we planted.
Our
jealous of
hardest
that.
time is actually right now.
Yeah.
Right.
The hardest time is like
Between the seasons,
right,
because
like
of annuals.
between spring and summer and between fall and winter. Like we just haven't had the rain
Yeah,
yet.
right.
So do you have, like, my thought would be you have stockpile paddocks for this time of the year, but do you just not have enough land with the amount of animals you have to do that?
Correct. I mean, that's true for the most part.
And
We didn't
would
feed.
stockpiled like sorghum have enough punch for dairy cattle?
Oh no, no,
You
no,
can't
no! You
stockpile
can't.
sorghum
Once it
because
frosts, it's poisonous.
um,
Millet, you could, but those summer annuals, when they die, they're dead. And then sorghum is poisonous actually once it dies from frost. It's the stockpiling, I think, is more on the perennial type pastures, really.
I've heard people stockpile dead corn, um,
Oh,
and
Well,
we don't.
I stockpile sorghum, but
really?
yeah,
Well,
but I
after
don't
2 weeks,
know.
you can graze it.
I wait a
Well,
month after a hard frost, and I try not to
and
have any green left in the stock.
huh,
That's interesting.
that's cool. We'll keep that in mind.
Well,
We
I
haven't done it because we've
not
always
saying
just
that I know what I'm doing, but
Well,
We,
have you had any dead cows from that yet?
no,
Then you're doing good.
There's a lot of people that swear by it, but I would think that your environment might be a little bit more tricky because you don't have the hard frost, and I've heard of people having issues even if it freezes, but then it warms back up.
yes,
Like I don't know
Yeah.
if you
there's
ever get the
definitely
full
a
kill off.
period
Got
that we had that like a couple weeks ago that the sorghum Sudan was still green, but I think probably toxic, even though
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
like right now, we've had a couple hard frosts, but we've like where it's warm right now, and the people who stockpile a lot of sorghum, like Gabe Brown's a big one that does it, and they would say that the diversity in those mixes prevent the concern that they have about that prussic acid. But I've seen the green hang on longer this year than I would expect
Hmm.
in our sorghum crops for whatever reason. It definitely isn't as easy as just having one hard frost and then waiting 2 weeks, in my opinion. But
Well, it's interesting because two of the fields up there have sorghum, Sudan grass and it's sorghum Sudan, and then we broadcasted rye into that, thinking that the sorghum Sudan would die back, and it didn't. And so now we're like, huh. So it's good to hear what you're saying, because hopefully the rye is coming up if we get enough rain and all that.
I've
And the
seen that
sorghum,
happen a lot where the sorghum, you think
okay,
there's nothing in those patches. And
right,
then
Right.
this time of the year, you get warm stretches like this. Then the collards, the turnips, radishes, annual ryegrass, hairy vetch is still hanging on nice and green for us right now. Those things then seem to take off.
yeah,
Yeah, we definitely have sorghum Sudan still up there that we're going to have to be careful with.
yeah.
The stockpiling, the probably the most effective stockpiling we've done has been with small grains in the
Oh, the
spring.
oats. Oh,
And that's my favorite thing to do for the soil. And if we had a lot more acreage, we would do even more of it, which is like in one 10-acre field, for example, we planted small grains in the fall and with the hairy vetch. That's the other thing I forgot to say in our mixes. We have a lot of vetch. And it was vetch and clover and, small grains and all the things. And we did not graze it until May of the following year.
with the hairy patch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like
They like what?
probably 11 or 12 feet tall. And it was just incredibly dense. And when those cows went through there, now the nutrition value for dairy cows wasn't that great, right? Because it's a lot of stalks. But there was, the tops of the hairy vetch flowers and other things. But when they went through there, it honestly looked like we roller crimped it. It was the most perfect laid down cover crop, and we didn't have any horse nettle that germinated that year.
Yeah,
The
the hairy vetch is the absolute best plant, I think, to smother whatever you don't want if you're not going to use spray chemicals, which we don't do. And so we have this stuff called smut grass from the Caribbean, I think, because the guy who owned on this 100 acres that we're sitting was a landscape guy. And the smut grass is horrible. I mean, the cows don't even want to lay on it, let alone not eat it. And but we for 3 cool seasons in a row we planted uh, uh, when was maybe it was only two, but hairy vetch, and it smothered it right out. It's great, and so we do that to Kentucky 31 fescue as well, because we hate Kentucky 31 fescue. There's nothing good about it except for 2 months, after it's frosted and all that, and so we've smothered that out as well with hairy vetch, and
the
Yeah.
the
it's
problem
amazing.
the
It's
problem
amazing.
with all these things though is like it's where theory meets practice, right? So like, can you smother stuff with hairy vetch? Yes. Does it work? Of course.
Well, I
But
didn't know
I've
it did, but it
actually
does.
I've actually cut back the hairy vetch in our mixtures because when we were doing like 7 pounds to 10 pounds of hairy vetch per acre in the mixes, by May there was nothing for the cows to graze except hairy
Right.
vetch.
It's
And
not a
like
lot of dry matter in that.
tons, well, the problem is they were
Well,
getting
and
this
isn't
total
there isn't there some medical concerns if it is too heavy with hairy vetch?
I
we
think
haven't
it's
Seed
had
it
more with
out.
horses. I think it's more with horses, actually.
it's a real thing. We haven't had the problem.
Right.
I think the diversity is the reason why
Right.
we haven't
Same
had the
Yeah.
thing.
problem. However, like what did happen is they started to get like weepy eyes, and some of the calves got digestive disturbances. So they weren't like dying, but they weren't performing
It
well
was
because
just too
the
much
vetch like the
monocrop.
vetch like took over the mix. And so it's taken me a number of years to get the proportions right, such that like we're getting good soil, the soil is moving forward, but like we're also having stuff that's in a balanced ratio for the cows to eat and digest at different times of the grazing cycle. Because towards the end, like hairy vetch just becomes like a monoculture of hairy vetch, even though there was only 7 pounds of it per acre
Yeah.
planted compared to 110 pounds of
The oats.
oats.
Yeah.
But like it doesn't matter, the oats were like getting tired and the hairy vetch was like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the theory and the practice of all this, like, I can say to somebody, yes, like we had this wonderful cover crop and it grew so tall and the cows grazed it and we grew the soil organic matter and all this stuff. But at the practical in that one field, and no horse nettle germinated, but nobody has the ability to rest all of your fields in the same year, right? Like when we weren't using that field for 7 months, it meant I had to feed the cows elsewhere. I was missing 10 acres for 7 months. And that can work, but like these regenerative practices only work. You can't afford to do them all in the same year. You can't afford to just say, well, I'm not going to use my land this year because I'm going to rest it. Well, that's great. But like, what are your cows going to eat this year? Um, and what was the nutrition in that forage for those dairy cows? Not great. Was
Yeah,
it
so
great for the soil?
that'd be one of my questions is in these mixes, are you setting things back and replanting every year in all your acreage, or are you using these biannuals in these mixes to then say like half of the fields this year, we're going to graze the second year of growth on these mixes?
No.
Well, that's interesting. Now, with the crabgrass, the cows love crabgrass. No one ever can believe that, but cows love crabgrass. And if you let it go to seed, they'll still eat it when it has gone to seed. And then in this area, it'll volunteer itself again next year. It's an annual plant, about 50%. And so we've been building up our pastures with crabgrass because the cows like it and it volunteers. So we have less seed. So, I mean, we do kind of build up the soil seed bank with plants that we want to see volunteer again. And it seems to be working.
I'd be
Yeah, but
curious to
we are
see like if you like you're talking about planting chicory and some of these other deep rooted plants. Like, are you seeing them come back even after a light
Yep.
tillage?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not at the same rate that they were in there, but you know, when we add chicory back in the mix, we're only adding a pound an acre. It's not really that expensive to just kind of like keep the seed bank up. And um, certain fields that have heavy chicory, I will elect to maybe not disc that year because wow, the chicory's coming on and it's just looking really good. And so maybe we don't disc that field that year.
It's amazing that they like to eat that broadleaf plant when they don't eat other broadleaf plants. And that grazing chicory is almost like it comes up any season. It's not like a warm
Oh
season,
yeah, it's
annual,
awesome.
cool season. It's an amazing plant. And it likes, hey, whatever plants like our soil here and the cows eat, we're happy with,
I would
and
say
chicory's one of them.
whatever plants grow along the road ditches, I want to get in my pasture because we have chicory
Right.
all over the road ditches here.
But yeah, is that
Yeah.
a native chicory or grazing chicory?
Well, I'm
Well,
sure that
I don't
That
know.
would be native. Wow.
It's probably it's
so
well, I don't know because it's the same chicory I have in my fields that I planted.
oh really?
Okay, well
So
then
I
it's
could
grazing.
I'm
Yeah.
assuming it came from the initial mix when they put
Mm.
the row ditches in, and it just keeps coming back because it goes to seed. But I don't know.
Interesting.
Probably. It's chicory's not the easiest thing to get established well, like in a it wants to be established in certain windows of time. It can't be too hot and it can't be too cold and it needs moisture and it needs like to get it established, not a ton of competition. Like there has to be some open soil or some bare soil. But once it's there and it becomes in the pastures, then it's very easy to keep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's persistent.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and we're talking about two different areas here. That's why
Yeah,
context and geographical regions is a different. Like I'm pretty
That's
right.
true.
thankful with our growing conditions here in our soil.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I do
Yeah, I mean
too.
it gets very, very hot here. Like chicory's not going to be going. It doesn't. It's we can't get chicory started in June here, for
No.
example. Um,
But if it's in that paddock, it will be there at some point in the year.
and it grows in the summer.
Yeah.
It doesn't grow as vigorously, but it does grow.
so have you tested like part of the problem is equipment and having it, but have you tested, with dairy operations, I've always thought it'd be kind of nice because you're obviously bringing these animals back into a milking situation where you probably have some sort of feed for them as well, so you can push some of these paddocks harder than if they were just out in that paddock eating and they were surviving on that food. I wonder, if you came in and drilled, the week following a paddock after you had moved on, have you ever tried that and establishing some of these mixes?
Our soil is still fairly tight, and that's changing, but such that just no-till drilling. It's not that we can't get stuff to grow. It's just that it doesn't grow very robustly
Right. Yeah.
without some disturbance of the soil. And again, that's becoming less true, but still it seems to me to justify buying the seed, I need to create some kind of seed bed. I mean, we're not tilling it, and we're certainly not plowing it, but
Well,
just
for disking,
disking the soil
sometimes,
surface.
yeah, we just scratch it with the disc. We don't do the hard disc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
depends. We're starting to scratch more rather than do a full disking like every which way, to get it, real good. So we're going the right way that way, but it's not to please like to get, a regenerative seal. We're just going that way because we can get away with it and do less tillage, less fuel and all that and still get a crop going, but it is less tillage. Like when we do broadcasting of the rye, the 100 acres we have, I think Andy, our field guy, like scratched the surface, definitely didn't disc it without doubt.
A
Just
lot of the rye did
lightly.
nothing too,
Yeah.
because I foolishly thought if I planted it in September, that if it rained, I could have some rye like coming up through the crabgrass, and that was not to be. The plant the that seed just sat there and waited, and now it's like mid-November, and it's like,
Still
okay,
waiting.
no, it's coming up now. But I really wish
We
that
need
those
rain.
early fields I would have planted in small grains, because the fields that I planted small grains in early are doing wonderfully. I mean, they're I don't know,
Yeah, chicory's
12
that
inches
tall
tall
too.
and green and beautiful. But the fields that I just no-tilled, sorry, not no-tilled, broadcast rye in with no tillage at all, just like put it on the soil surface under whatever was dying, crabgrass, whatever else. It just sat there and waited and waited and waited.
Yeah, we won't do that
I
again.
waited for 2 months. That's a long time to wait for
Yeah.
seed to come up.
Still
Especially if we
came
want
up.
to be grazing into January,
Right.
Hopefully it's going to come up. I mean, it's starting to come up. It's just depressing to see a brown field that you planted 2 months ago.
Well, and
Yeah.
the first time we planted it, this 100 acres we're at here, I think I planted the last day I planted the first time with our no-till drill was December 12th. And that didn't come up till the springtime, but everything's out. Well, just got to wait for that rain,
Yeah.
So,
So you do have a no-till drill that
yep,
you
do.
use?
that's all we got.
Oh.
We got we got a 60 John Deere 6400 field tractor, and we got a no-till drill. That's our main, and an offset disc. That's our
And we have a finishing disc.
and they're not brand new, I can tell you that. And oh, and then we got a cultipacker. That's kind of a key thing, actually, I think, for getting that nice soil seed contact. But
Yeah.
that's about it. We're not we're not fancy, that's for sure.
And are you ever feeding the hay out on the fields, or are you putting that into your compost
Yes,
mix?
we used to do it a
with
lot.
that a lot for many years.
We used to do it a lot more than we do now. And what I found was the people who were talking about doing that were feeding beef cows, and their hay was not nearly as expensive as our hay. And so like they're like, "Oh, wasting 50%, it's fine. It's all going back in the soil." Well, like wasting 50% when you're feeding dairy cows like
Oh, what's
really
like
hurts.
gold? Man,
It really hurts, especially because we
expensive.
were trucking in a lot of that feed
Yeah.
because there was no dairy feed in our area. So we really stopped feeding outside on the soil as a regular practice because it was costing us too much money. The first year that we stopped doing that, we saved 30% on our hay bill. 30%. It was
Yeah.
not a small number.
Well, the interesting thing too is if you feed out like not bale grazing per se, but when you feeding it out in like ring bales, which is what we did for a bunch of years, two things bad can happen. One, they leave about 15 to 20% for real, just that lower island. You take away the ring, and then occasionally we've had this where an animal, for whatever reason, maybe they were a little low in calcium, we didn't know it, but or they're too round. We have our genetics here are for grazing. They're very round and not tall-legged cows. Sometimes they would sometimes they would bloat on those things. They'd have their head over the side of one of those island rings that were left. They'd lean their head down. They couldn't get back up, and we'd find them dead in the morning. And we've heard that with some other Jersey grazers as well, one in Pennsylvania and Maryland. And it's just kind of like their belly is too round. The
So
other
you're saying
thing
you
is
would
that
you took the ring away, and then there was hay residue left over, and they would lay on
and
it and bloat?
they would
Yep.
they lay on it and nap and sleep and all that. And like almost all of them did fine, but there'd be one or two that would bloat.
We were losing like 1 to 3
One a
cows
year.
a winter
Yeah.
that way.
Yep.
And
And
it
then,
sucks to lose a perfectly great
yeah.
cow and there's nothing wrong except she
Right.
took a nap on the wrong
Right.
hill.
Right. Right. Exactly. And the other
That's
thing then
crazy.
is, yep, in the springtime, when you have that residue left over from baleage, not dry hay, but from baleage, it's a very anaerobic little air environment underneath that pad of what's left over. And so you got to get rid of that. I mean,
Yeah.
like, so we had two kind of retired guys running two tractors, forking it out and just kind of getting rid of it and going to a compost pile just for that soil area. And we had a lot of those areas covered, with those pads that were baleage bales before. And so that took up a lot of real estate in a sense. So that's two negatives about feeding baleage out in the field.
But I will say this, even despite what we're saying, we still do it.
Yeah.
We just do it less.
Right.
So we feed the majority of what the cows eat, if they're going to eat feed, like hay, we don't feed grain, but like hay, it would be on our concrete hay pad through head gates. And that does a couple of things. One, we don't waste any because whatever the cows don't eat, we just rake up and we feed to another group. So like the calves or the bulls or whatever will eat that hay that the cows didn't finish. And so there's no waste. Then the second thing is they're pooping and peeing on those wood chips on that lane that we talked about, which is allowing us to do a lot more composting. So we're taking all this carbon input from the farm and we're directly mixing it with manure and urine.
Saturating it.
So our barn is making a huge amount of compost. Like we're able to fertilize 7 to 10 acre field per month with a pretty thick layer of
Yeah. I mean,
stuff.
I would do the same thing if I had cattle coming back into a building every day because I had to milk them. I would feed them on concrete if you could.
Yeah, there's just a lot of fertility that comes out
And
of it.
then our bedded pack also we take out monthly, so that all
Yeah,
goes
we
in.
don't skimp on straw. I mean, we're milking 60 cows and we buy about 700 bales of straw a year. That's a lot of straw.
Yeah.
It's a lot of straw,
Please,
but
straws.
that's our fertility program.
So have you
And-
ever had any issues with my opinion on straw now is I had some issues with thistle seed in it because I think it heads out and gets harvested right around the same time thistles go to seed, in our area, July. But
I could see that. We've found that since we've altered the pH in our soils, the thistles went away without doing anything. We had a field that was almost entirely
Field
thistles,
11 was horrible.
and now it has no thistles.
Just biology.
But just so that I can finish the conversation and not leave people the impression that we never feed outside anymore. Like the cows right now, like while we're on this conversation, are coming in from a field where they were fed a single bale that we put in 3 piles. We didn't roll it out because a lot of it would be wasted. We literally take it with the tractor, shakes them out. And so 60 cows are eating baleage in 3 little TP piles.
But their main source of feed is at the head gates.
Well, right, but they're like when
right
they're exercising, when there isn't green stuff for them to graze, we fed a bale outside. And then last winter we fed like in pasture B, we probably put 300 round bales out there last year in the winter.
See the fertility.
And so like we do feed outside, but we don't roll it out. We feed outside like either in piles or just like sometimes we'll put, if we're going to feed them outside overnight, they'll eat 2 or 3 bales, just intact bales, but we only put out what they're going to eat for a 12-hour period. And I wouldn't say we make them clean it up. They're not like licking the ground. They're dairy cows, right? Like we can't make them clean it up. But like we're only putting out what they're going to eat relatively clean in that 12-hour period so that there's no waste, so there's no like anaerobic piles. And I think that hay management and regenerative systems is something that's not talked about enough. That's why I wanted to talk about it, is because no one's really, everyone's talking about the soil benefits of feeding hay outside and rolling it out. And very few people are talking about like how you actually manage that financially and like how you manage the waste and how you don't lose your shirt doing it.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely, on a drought year when hay was $80, I fed a lot less hay out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad we've done it and we've increased the fertility a lot, but we've had to get really smart about not just like taking a round bale and rolling it down the hill and be like, oh, enjoy it, cows.
Although that was the right way to go, and also with the straw, when the soil looked like a Martian landscape. That was absolutely the right way to go.
Totally. It's
100%.
just nobody talks about how expensive it is. Everyone's like, oh, you just feed it outside and there's a little waste. No, there's a
Right.
lot of waste. And like that has to be part of your budget
And
and
also,
understanding.
and when you're trying to rebuild the soil, like remember early on when you got those crappy bales from Lester?
Mm-hmm.
They were like $5 a piece or whatever. These were like molding hay bales that he didn't want. He was going to burn them. And she said, "You're
Yeah.
not burning them." He said, "Okay, I give them to you for $5 a piece or whatever it was." Those things we unrolled. The animals, it wasn't for feed, but they
Right.
lay in it. And then the next spring was like nice green rows coming up in that Martian landscape. And that's how,
Yeah.
that was a big part of
And
changing
then
our
the other
pasture
thing I like
gene.
to advise people about is like if you're going to go to your neighbors and try to buy their moldy hay that they're storing outside and you're going to tell them you're going to use it as compost or mulch, like you'd be surprised what your neighbors are going to feed and how mad you're going to make your neighbors be when they find out that you think that their beef cow
It's
feed
compost.
is like for your bedding. Like those are like delicate little conversations to have with neighbors. And yeah, I've learned to do that well because otherwise you can really make some people mad. But you have to have conversations like that because there's good stuff laying around and you need to get your hands on it. So it's just a matter of like, hey, are you going to feed that or you didn't need to feed all of it? And like, oh, I got some beef cows and they don't need much, and then you get some. But telling people you're gonna roll out on your land the feed that they're planning on feeding their beef cows is not a good way to make a neighbor friend.
But yeah, I mean, to circle back to the neighbors and all in the community, it's really amazing, like how many former dairymen or retired dairymen or people that went out because just people don't dairy here anymore. There were like 100 dairy farms in this county about 25 years ago. Now there's two, us and
Yeah.
one guy who's a small processor who now we ship to. But like we have these relationships with these guys that I would never know Bobby and James in 100 years. I mean, they could be from the deep south, and I'm a Yankee, she's a Yankee gal, and yet we're really good friends. She's gone to bat for them at some local county issue, and this other dairy farmer, he's certified organic, and he's really into biology, and Elaine Ingham type compost tea, and we all band together and a couple other guys, and it's because there's dairy cows, and they just want to. Dairy farmers know what dairy cows mean, and I don't know how it works with hog farmers or poultry farmers, but there's something about dairy cows that brings people together and keeps people together, even if they don't have dairy cows anymore. They just want to be in it, just kind of like how I was bit by the bug and she was bit by the bug. You just want to be in it once you get a taste of it, and there's just, I don't know, there's just something about it that's really really an amazing part of life and has made my life, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've really enjoyed talking to you guys. I think we could go. I have a lot more questions we could ask, and we could probably go a lot longer. But let's save a little bit for the conference. Anything you guys would like to say to people who are possibly attending your session at EcoAg?
I love to talk to people about their dreams and maybe stave off some of the things that sideline them because agriculture is really precarious. Like it tends to take all of you and all of your money and all of your focus and if there's like beliefs or assumptions that are getting in your way, that I've been down that road, I'd like to help you not have to take that particular detour because it might be the one that like either bankrupts you or it makes you want to give up. And I see a lot of people in this for a few years and wanting to give up because it's a lot harder than they thought it was going to be. And I've been down those dark alleys, and I really want people to win.
That's for
Right
sure.
on.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Thank you very much for your
Okay.
time.
Thanks
Thanks,
so much.
Taylor. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Acres USA podcast, a podcast production of Acres USA. Find us on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, and other popular podcast platforms. Acres USA is North America's oldest publisher on production scale organic and regenerative farming. For more than 50 years, our mission has been to help farmers, ranchers, and market gardeners grow food profitably, regeneratively, and with nature in mind. Find our books and other Acres USA media and learn about Acres USA events at acresusa.com. Read our online magazine at members.acresusa.com, and we'd like to thank Acres USA staff for their contributions to producing this podcast. This episode was edited and engineered by Weston Larson of Acres USA. We're grateful to our guests for taking the time to talk with us about their experiences.